Michael Fentiman, the Lion, Witch and the Wardrobe has come into Southend. So you're on tour at the moment. How's it going?
Well, it's all good. I mean, I don't go on tour with it. I sit in my house and hear reports from afar. But carry on with the show, and we've done a 6-week run in Leeds, smashing box office records. And then the first move of the tour is where I am now, which is in Leicester. I'm just checking in and seeing if everyone's all right, and then it goes off on its merry way around the country, stopping off at Southend, moving right through the year, ending up at Sadler's Wells in the summer, and finishing up at the Lowry in Salford. Christmas,
yeah.
the end of this year.
And take us back a bit. Did you say how long was it at York, and how did it smash box office records? What did you say there?
It was at Leeds Playhouse from towards the end of November through till just last week. And it was a rollicking success.
And does that show live theatre, or maybe just a very, very good show, Michael, is alive and well?
It's alive and well, and it has its challenges, post-pandemic, rising costs in production and trying to keep ticket prices reasonable. I think our producers work really hard to do. So it has its challenges, but if you hit the sweet spot, people come and have a brilliant time. And I think, on some level, the more our lives become digitised, the more unique an experience like what we can offer in large-scale theatre is.
And so what's unique? What is the sweet spot, and what is unique about this show?
Well, I think Lion, Witch and the Wardrobe's embedded in English. It's almost, in 200 years' time, it'll become one of our folk tales almost. Once you get it further along, 200-300 years' time, suddenly it'll be an ancient folk story, an ancient English folk story. Of course, it's not that old at the moment, but it's much beloved. And I think what it is, what it will become, even more as time goes on, is something that's totally embedded in our sense of storytelling, our sense of myth, and our sense of culture. It's one of our deep loved classics, and I think it will hold on, continuing to be. And people love it because, it's an interesting thing, because on the surface, it's a little bit things like Lord of the Rings or Lord of the Rings or particularly Narnia and Lord of the Rings. On one level they are the stuff of, you could see them as the stuff of silly fantasy, fauns, fairies, talking goats. But they have the capacity and the power to lock into something that we find deeply conjuring of our imaginations and strangely moving. And so one thing we always find, we have a huge adult audience for the show. I mean, it's on Fridays and Saturday nights, this is an adult audience, this show. And through the week in matinees, we pack out audiences of 1,500, 2,000 6-year-olds. And what you see the 6-year-old for the first time experiencing something rich, there's a history and a deep imagination to it, and a lot of magic and wonder. And what's really lovely, on Friday and Saturday night, you see people in their 60s, 70s, 80s and beyond re-experiencing their connection with their childhood imagination in a way that can be quite moving, because a lot of people had really, really vivid emotional memories of their experiences with the book when they were a kid.
That's fascinating you say that, because when I mentioned I was going to do this, my wife went, "Oh, Lion, Witch and Wardrobe." My daughter went the same, and my granddaughter said the same. So, and that's great, isn't it?
Yeah, multi-generational. I mean, there are, Alice in Wonderland, kind of most people know. You know what I mean? There's like 4 or 5 absolutely embedded in the fabric of, the life cycle of British young people.
Okay.
And then holding them as the adults. It's totally a multi-generational story, and we find the show appeals on a multi-generational level.
Yeah. Last time I reviewed Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe was a few years ago, a production down in the Victoria Hall Theatre in Old Harlow. So tell us about your, as they say, your Harlow connection and your theatre journey from Harlow.
Well, I'm from Harlow. Born in Prince Alexandra. And went to Fulham Barn and Markle School, and then just, at the time, I was incredibly lucky. I was in a generation in which, primary school age, in the summer holidays, my parents would pay £5 or whatever, and for the entire summer, we would have a sports and play scheme at the Norman Booth Centre, and that ran all over Harlow, Summers, where for 6 weeks of the year we were stimulated, loads of things to do, put on by big county council, local government, right, subsidised by. And around that, it's amazing. Essex Youth Service, Harlow Youth Service, which is a collection of youth clubs and things like this. But it was also that initially one of the driving forces behind what turned Victoria Hall, which was a youth club when I was a kid, into an art space. So it had this incredibly, well resourced or well nourished at least relationships that you offer up young people. And right in the centre of that was the Harlow Playhouse. You had a studio theatre, an enormous workshop, an enormous, really good high grade workshop, and a big theatre that you could, if you were to be of a mind to, which obviously was the intention in the 70s, you could make a West End show in there and then move it, pre-town. So you had these really dynamic, high quality spaces with a guy called Phil Dale running the theatre, but also sort of at that point curating the kind of community theatre scene that ran around the theatre. And it was another one of those amazing Harlow services that sort of pulled me in and completely changed my life, but also meant I could cut my teeth as a young person doing really big shows.
Yeah.
I mean, really, really, really big shows in that theatre. I mean, the ambition of the kind of stuff that Phil was doing back then, you're talking nearly 20 years now, was completely amazing. And I remember in the generation before me, so at my age, there hadn't been like a huge amount of people that had transferred into the business for whatever reason. But it's a great source of pride for me and Phil when we talk about it, about how many of that time when we were all sort of growing at the Playhouse, people are now holding careers in the business. So to give you an example of it, Dave Hearn, the founder member of Mischief Theatre Company in the West End, touring all over the world. Kaylee McKnight is a top musical theatre star and been in 6. On this production alone, completely coincidentally, Emily Irish, who was a Playhouse theatre scheme technical person, is my associate lighting designer. A girl called Phoebe Bath, who came and joined the summer school of the Harlow Playhouse with Phil, is my production manager. So that's on this show alone, working at the top level of British theatre, 3 people with Harlow connections. Now, only a town of 80,000 people, or some such. So it was an amazing resource moment in history for young people to come to youth services, but also access to the arts. It's just amazing. And my sense is that's not quite the case now in Harlow, but also all over the country. And that those opportunities aren't always there. But I was very lucky to be born the time I was in Harlow.
I felt there you were veering onto our politics page, but that's the point, isn't it? The points you're making are as fresh today and are very pertinent. And so how did you make the leap? What was the next leap from Harlow Playhouse, Phil Dale?
Well, I went to university and I came and studied as an actor, and after I came back to university, I came back to direct the Panto. So that was my first paid gig. So I paid to direct for the first time by the Harlow Playhouse.
Ah.
And the Panto was great, successful, and great learning experience. I went on to do a master's. Then after that, I went to the Royal Shakespeare Company for 5 years, and then it's just sort of all led on from there, really. And now I don't live in Harlow anymore. I live in Bristol. All my family is still there.
But you mentioned about what it's like today. Actually, Martin Colton down at Harlow at the Victoria Hall.
He was the back of the cow in Jack and the Beanstalk when in 2004.
Good memory, and he'll admit to. But he just recently had a podcast weekend and had 140 people on his podcast, and I'll write that piece this afternoon, and I was one of the people in it as well. But I just looked around me saying, look at all these creative people. So in many ways, I still think it's there, and Harlow's very blessed to have many theatre groups, etc. But it still needs feeding, doesn't it? It still needs nurturing.
It needs feeding, and also the interesting. I'll be fascinated to know the age demographics of the guys that Martin pulled on his podcast, because it's a theatre is a very middle class sport, for lots of different reasons. And one that's great about the Harlow scene when I was younger is it gave access to art to people from communities that wouldn't necessarily be pulled towards it. It was actually kind of extraordinary. That took a lot of coaxing and took a lot of supporting and curating and funding, And so obviously, because to have a very effective access point to young people by the youth service, that then would push you towards other organisations like the Playhouse. There's amazing. There's a guy called, he passed away quite some time ago now. There's a guy called Pete Brown, who worked for, at different times, he worked for the District Council, part of their youth engagement facilities, and then also the Essex Youth Service at different points. And Pete would wander the streets of Old Harlow, right, with other youth workers, approach kids just listing about on the street at the bench in Old Harlow, and just get chatting and say, what kind of things are you interested in, what do you want to do, right? And what do you want to do? Oh, you want to organise a football tournament? Oh, yeah, well, we can talk to Harlow Sports Centre. And so when I was 14, I organised a 50-team five-a-side football tournament at the Harlow Sports Centre, with the support of local youth services, because they pushed me towards an organisation. When I said I was interested in the arts and theatre, these sorts of systems helped us to develop a reading of a play that we thought we might do, and spent a weekend on a riverboat reading that play with a group of young actors. I was 16. That's an amazing system that basically pulled me in and pushed me towards services from a starting point of wandering around the street. That is absolutely extraordinary and special. And so Martin Colton, for example, would have been part of, maybe not that system, but part of a kind of energy and a structure that was there to pull people in. I think for Martin, lots of people, but I definitely remember that Lawrence State, who ran the building before Martin did, pulled a group of people in, nurtured them, put them in shows. I think I remember Martin playing Dracula or something when he was 13 and 14. And that was about someone paid to be there to pull people in and develop them. It was a really amazing moment when you look back on it.
And
because of the level of support we had.
Yeah. And this isn't the Martin Colton interview. He's got his news item in a minute. But however, it's a pertinent point. But his and maybe it leads to my last question, because his daughter's band won Battle of the Bands last night at Burnt Mill. So in that well-worn traditional question, so somebody who is 14, 16, 17 and has ambitions or interest in theatre in 2025, what's your advice?
Gosh, I'm 42, so you sort of move into the realms of criticism you get. But I'd say my advice is gosh, I just think about that.
It's okay, we can come back to it another time when we'll meet you down in Southend.
No, my advice is hold on to what you love in something. Protect the love that you have in something. So if you just pursue it, and you pursue it for the joy that's in it, and don't get don't forget that joy when you're trying to also couple that joy with ambition, right? You will get from the art. Can you hear me okay? My phone's playing up.
Yeah, there was a little bit of a play up there,
okay?
so we'll.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Basically, so many young people at 16, 17, 18 start really, really worrying about getting into drama school so that they can advance and become an actor and be a star, and they worry about their auditions, and they worry about scrambling the money about to do their auditions. And the truth is, a relationship to a career in the arts, but a relationship to the arts is really about just protecting the joy in it and not taking things, not putting yourself under too much pressure, and not feeling like it's all too much of a rush to get to a certain fixed point. You know, getting into drama school, getting that first job, getting that big film, whatever, that can all get in the way of the fundamental thing of like, just keep loving it. And if you just keep loving it, it will push you towards something nourishing. And that might be a wonderful professional career. It might push you towards a lovely appreciation of the arts as an audience member, or it will mean you have another job and you have a wonderful life also doing very nourishing things in community theatre. But the really, really important thing is to not put your relationship to the doing of it under too much pressure. It should be fun. It should be fun, and it's I think it's definitely a thing of young people at the moment. They just put themselves under so much pressure to get somewhere and succeed, and that's all a distraction. They just need to have some fun. I've realised that every single time I achieve anything that I was ambitious to achieve, I don't really register it. I don't really think about it. I just move on to the next thing. You know, get nominated for an award or direct a show of a certain prestigious theatre, or any benchmark I set that I put myself under pressure about. The truth is, once you get there, you just move on to another thing you set. And that can make you forget the most important thing about doing this job or getting involved in this thing is that it is fun and joyful and unique. Yeah, that's my point.